You are not ready for Hellblade 2. It has the potential to be one of the Game of the Year contenders for 2024 and possibly one of the best Xbox exclusives ever released, which I know hasn't been a very high bar as of late. Hellblade 2 is at the top of many people's most anticipated games lists, and for good reason. If you haven't played the first game of the series, you may know very little about it, and if you have played the first game, you know exactly what we're in store for with the sequel. The sequel, as many of you may know, Hellblade 2, is being developed by Ninja Theory as an Xbox and PC exclusive on Unreal Engine 5, and is set to release in 2024. Although we don't know much about the game, and despite having seen about 3 trailers for it which show absolutely nothing, I'm here to be an optimist and tell you why Hellblade 2 will be groundbreaking, beautiful, unique, and a satisfying experience that you are not ready for. Welcome to this video on why Hellblade 2 will be an outstanding game that you are absolutely not ready for. And as always, welcome to the Yamnote Express, and thank you for watching. And if you're new here and like video essay type videos about gaming, please be sure to subscribe for more if you feel like it. Thank you. Now, if you haven't played Hellblade 1 yet, I highly recommend it. But before you do, absolutely do not forget to wear headphones when playing it. The sound design in this game is second to absolutely no other game ever made. You play as Senua, who is suffering with psychosis, a mental illness that makes her have auditory and visual hallucinations, all while battling with grief for her lost lover. It's a sort of mental horror and unique experience that only video games can provide. You will hear voices all over you in surround sound, and it's absolutely terrifying. Hellblade is an outstanding title where you play as Senua, experiencing her psychosis and schizophrenia firsthand. It is truly one of the most unique gaming experiences I have ever seen. I mean, just look at this clip and see for yourself.
A vision of what's to come. Poor Senua. The darkness does not bargain. It does not reason. It is wrought. And now it has taken hold. It will spread towards her head, the seat of the soul, until there is nothing left of her.
Damn, that was crazy. Okay, maybe not that crazy, but I think this game has the potential to be amazing with Microsoft's budget. If that little clip was in the beginning of the first game and made by only 12 developers on a tight budget, I can only imagine what they can do with a larger budget and a larger workforce at their disposal. Aside from the combat and maybe improvements to the puzzles in the game, what do you hope to see from Hellblade 2? Please leave a comment and let me know. A couple of the shortcomings when it comes to Hellblade is the poor combat, and some of the puzzles get boring, and some even call it a walking simulator. I think these aspects need to be improved upon for Hellblade 2 to make it a game that scores like in the 90s in the Metacritics. Which obviously Metacritic scores don't matter, but you know, it's good for marketing. I can see Hellblade 2 hit the 90s if the combat is improved, and by the looks of it, I think it will be because it's one of the critical pieces of feedback that Ninja Theory received after the first game. Let's hope the next trailer that we see for Hellblade will include some combat mechanics. Obviously, we know and have seen very little about Hellblade 2, so why would there be any reason to be excited for it? First of all, purely based on the merit of its predecessor, it has the potential to be a unique and groundbreaking gaming experience. But before you start to trash the first game and by extension Hellblade 2, keep in mind the original game was only made by 12 developers on a very tight budget, but its sequel will be made with a massive budget and the same studio with a much larger workforce. Obviously, it's important to keep your hopes and hype in check to avoid disappointment, if that's what you like to do, but if you know me, I love being hyped for new releases, and being a skeptic just seems like a boring and unexciting way to live life for me. The prequel to Hellblade 2, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, was an amazing game released in 2017, but Ninja Theory as a PlayStation exclusive. At the time, Ninja Theory only had 12 developers, and as an independent studio they were on a very tight budget. Despite these humble origins and limitations, it was touted as a masterclass of atmosphere, storytelling, and the marriage of mechanical and conceptual design by IGN. This drew the eye of Microsoft, which went on to acquire the studio in 2018. Since then, the studio has grown 10 times the original size, and now employs about 120 developers. Clearly, the work, time, and effort being put into Hellblade 2 is many magnitudes larger than what was put into the original game. This is one of the many reasons why Hellblade 2 has the potential to be one of the best games of 2024. If the studio was able to deliver the original game on such tight constraints, one can only imagine how great its sequel will be with 10 times the resources. But before you go off on me about how a larger budget doesn't always mean a good game, for example with the launch period of Cyberpunk, hear me out, please. Hellblade 2 is expected to be bigger in scale and more refined than its predecessor due to Ninja Theory having a larger budget to work with after being acquired by Microsoft. While there hasn't been much news about the game, the trailers have shown off incredibly detailed environments and impressive graphics. And we already know based off the first game that the visuals aside, the auditory experience is going to be insanely good. So if it seems like a game that has a lot of potential to be amazing. I was absolutely hyped out of my mind for Starfield and Spider-Man this year, and now I'm absolutely hyped out of my mind for Hellblade 2. Aside from the combat and maybe improvements to the puzzles in the game, what do you hope to see from Hellblade 2? Please leave a comment and let me know. We cannot continue talking about the game without talking about the game's plot and narrative. The game's narrative serves as a metaphor for the character's struggle with psychosis. Senua, who suffers from the condition but believes it to be a curse, is haunted by the entity known as the Darkness. The game blends different gameplay mechanics and concepts like puzzle solving, psychological horror, and melee combat. At the time, the game was well received by critics, who praised it as a work of art and applauded its uncommon choice of revolving around psychosis. Honestly, the main attraction of Hellblade is not Senua, it's more the experience you get and less about the gameplay, I think. Which is kind of a weird thing to say about a video game, but this is more like a movie that you kind of walk through and experience yourself, and you solve puzzles while you're in it. It's not going to be like Zelda where you're going to be enamored by the gameplay mechanics. But hopefully Hellblade 2 expands upon the gameplay mechanics a little bit and makes that part more interesting, which would really take the game to a whole nother level. Like I mentioned earlier, the combat was part of the shortcomings of the original game. I think to expand upon it, maybe add some small little RPG elements where you can upgrade your sword or upgrade your powers or upgrade your moves. That would make it better. But I have my doubts that they will go that far. I still think it's going to be more focused on a linear gameplay with less upgrades and more about the story and the experience. But there's always room for improvement. The game's puzzles were really good, but maybe they can improve on that as well and make them more engaging and a little bit harder, because I didn't find myself trouble with any of them except maybe like one, but overall it was a walk in the park. I truly think that if Hellblade 2 is an actual improvement on the first game, with some of the combat issues addressed or the puzzle problems addressed, and a more refined focus on the gameplay and the experience, it has a true potential to be a game that is unique and pushes the genre of gaming even further. But obviously we'll have to wait and see and keep your hype in check. I'm not going to do that, that's just not what I do. I'm really excited for it. And I think gamers are just not ready for it. The first one was really underrated, and the second one's just going to come out of nowhere and it's going to be good. At least I hope so. What are your thoughts on Hellblade 2? Are you excited for it? Do you think it's going to be okay? Do you think it's going to be great? Or do you think it's going to be terrible? Maybe you hate Xbox and you think it's going to be bad. But we don't do no console wars here. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did like it, please leave a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. And welcome to Yamlet Express, and thank you for watching.